I've come back to Cornell College today. Come back to ask each of you for one big thing. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your vote. In Iowa, you can vote today. Today. As long as you're registered before October 27th, you can vote right up to Election Day. In fact, you can go vote right after this event at the Cole Library. So, and anyone can find out how to register and where to vote at vote.barackobama.com. So, Iowa, are you going to vote for me today if you haven't already voted? I need you. Now, as many of you know, we had our second debate last night. I'm still trying to figure out, how to get the hang of this thing, debating. But we're working on it. We'll keep on improving as time goes on. I've got one left. But the interesting thing is that
as we approach the
Governor Romney has been running around talking about his 5-point plan for the economy for quite some time. And as I pointed out last night, and you guys heard yourselves, it's really a 1-point plan. It's really a 1-point plan. It says folks at the very top can play by their own set of rules. That's why they can pay lower taxes than you do. Or they can use offshore accounts. Or they can invest in a company, bankrupt it, fire the workers, take away their pensions, ship the jobs overseas, and still make money doing it. It's the 1-point plan that says it's okay for Wall Street to keep engaging in the reckless behavior that got us into the mess we've been fighting back from for the last 4 years. It's the same philosophy that's been squeezing middle-class families for more than a decade. It's the same philosophy that we saw in the previous administration, and I have seen too much pain and too much struggle to let this country go down that same road again. So Iowa, we can't, I want you to know, folks here in Iowa understand this. You cannot grow this economy from the top down. You grow this economy from the middle class out. We're not going to go back to what we were doing before. We're moving forward, and that's why I'm running for a second term as President of the United States. Now, Governor Romney also took another stab at trying to sell us his $5 trillion tax cut that favors the wealthy. Once again, he refused to tell us how he's going to pay for it. He said he'd let you know after the election. Now, here's a tip. Usually when a politician tells you he's going to wait until after the election to explain a plan to you, they don't have a pleasant surprise in store for you. And in this case, it's because just about everybody who's looked at Governor Romney's $5 trillion in tax cuts says he can't pay for it without blowing a hole in the deficit or raising taxes on middle-class families. It can't be done. Governor Romney says he has a plan to create 12 million new jobs in the next 4 years. But when folks started crunching the numbers, it fell apart even faster than his tax plan. Turns out his jobs math isn't any better than his tax math. The Washington Post called it a bait and switch. So let's recap what we learned last night. His tax plan doesn't add up. His jobs plan doesn't create jobs. His deficit reduction plan adds to the deficit. So Iowa, everybody here has heard of the New Deal. You've heard of the Fair Deal. You've heard of the Square Deal. Mitt Romney's trying to sell you a sketchy deal. We are not buying it. We know better. We've been there. We've tried that. We're not going back. We're moving forward. That's why I need your vote. We've got to finish what we started in 2008. You don't want to invest in that sketchy deal. Let me tell you. That too. You know, 4 years ago, I told you we'd end the war in Iraq, and I did. I said we'd end the war in Afghanistan, and we are. I said we'd focus on the terrorists who actually attacked us on 9/11, and we have, and bin Laden is dead. Four years ago, I promised to cut taxes for middle-class families, and we have by $3,600. I promised to cut taxes for small business owners, and we have 18 times. We got back every dime used to rescue the banks, and we passed a law to make sure that taxpayer-funded bailouts are over for good. We passed health care reform so your insurance company can't jerk you around anymore. We made sure insurance companies have to let parents keep their children on their parents' plan until they're 26 years old if they don't have health insurance. We said to insurance companies, you got to charge women the same as men because being a woman's not a pre-existing condition. We repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so no one's ever kicked out of the military because of who they love. When Governor Romney said we should just let Detroit go bankrupt, we said thanks, but no thanks, and we reinvented a dying auto industry that's come roaring back to the top of the world. Last time I was here, I said to students, we're going to help you make sure you can afford a college education. And we took $60 billion that was going to banks and middlemen in the student loan program. We said, let's cut out the middlemen. Let's give that money directly to students. And as a consequence, millions of students have benefited from lower interest rates and Pell Grants. Today, 4 years after the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes, we're moving forward again. After losing 800,000 jobs a month when I took office, our businesses have now added more than 5 million new jobs over the past 2.5 years. Unemployment has fallen from a peak of 10% to 7.8%. The stock market has nearly doubled, which means your 401ks have started to recover. Foreclosures are at their lowest point in 5 years. Home values are back on the rise. Manufacturing is coming home to America. Our assembly lines are starting to hum again. Look, we've got a lot more work to do, but we've got to build on that progress. And I've got a plan to grow the economy and create jobs and build more security for middle-class families. I talked about it last night. I want to export more products, outsource fewer jobs. We can keep giving tax breaks to companies that are shipping jobs overseas, or we can give those tax breaks to companies that are investing right here in Iowa, right here in the United States of America, rebuilding our manufacturing base. I want to control more of our own energy. You heard last night, oil production is up. Natural gas production's up. But what we've also said is we've got to develop new sources of energy, and we've got to be more efficient with our economy. And so we raised fuel efficiency standards on cars, so by the middle of the next decade, your car will go twice as far on a gallon of gas. We have doubled the amount of renewable energy that we generate from wind and solar and biofuels. Today, the United States of America is less dependent on foreign oil than any time in the last 2 decades. And so the question So the choice you have, you heard last night, it's not a choice between oil versus solar or natural gas versus wind. Look, we all agree we got to increase oil production. We all agree we got to increase natural gas production. But the question is whether we build on the progress for the new energy sources of the future. I'm not going to keep on giving corporate taxpayer-funded welfare to oil companies, $4 billion a year, when we could be using that money to continue to promote wind and solar and long-lasting batteries and put Americans back to work right now, seeing that technology develop here in the United States instead of China or Germany or some other country. And I've got to tell you, Iowa, this is not a pipe dream. There are nearly 7,000 jobs in Iowa right now depending on wind energy. Last night, Governor Romney claimed he didn't have a plan to end wind jobs in Iowa, but he called these jobs imaginary. His plan would end tax credits for wind energy producers. That is a fact. My plan will keep these investments and will keep reducing the carbon pollution that's also heating the planet, because climate change isn't a hoax. The droughts we've seen, the floods, the wildfires, those aren't a joke. They're a threat to our children's future, and we can do something about it. That's part of what's at stake in this election. I want to give more Americans the chance to get a great education and get the skills they need to compete in the 21st century. You know, I tried to talk about education last night. We kept on getting waylaid. But if you're talking about jobs and economic growth, what's more important than making sure everybody's got the skills they need? I'm only here because of a great education. All the young people who are making an investment in a college education right now, you guys understand you've got to be equipped. Michelle, her gateway into opportunity was her education system. Her dad was a blue-collar worker. Her mom was a secretary. And right now, as I said, because of the actions we already took, millions of young people are paying less for college because we finally took on that system that was wasting taxpayer dollars, gave it directly to students. Rachel, by the way, took a photo with her parents backstage, and she talked about how the fact that we put in place a tax credit for middle-income families to send their kids to college is helping her attend school right now. So, but what you saw last night, even though we weren't able to talk about as much as I would have liked, is a fundamental difference. Governor Romney says hiring more teachers won't grow our economy over the next 4 years. Well, you know what? Yes, it will. But more importantly, what about our kids over the next 40 years? What about our economy for the next 40 years? We could gut education, pay for Governor Romney's $5 trillion tax cut, or we can recruit 100,000 new math and science teachers over the next decade. Well, helping our young people refocus on science and technology, engineering, math. We should make sure all our young people, our daughters as well as our sons, are thriving in these fields. This should be a national mission. I've got to tell you, we don't have to collect a bunch of binders to find qualified, talented, driven young women ready to learn and teach in these fields right now.